Ball. And this is our legend segment. And tonight we got a true legend on tonight with me. I got a former coach of mine, um, just a great man, Coach Tommy Bowden. Tommy, welcome to the show.
I just thought that legend would apply to my father, not to me. It's Bobby. This is Tommy, not Bobby.
No, man, you are a legend in a lot of ways, Tommy, and we're going to talk about some of that tonight. I mean, you started playing football at a young age. Well, this is a legend show, Tommy. And what we try to do is we try to get people's story, and we want people to understand things from basically when you started playing football, when did you get the interest from football, and how you grew up in the game to where you became the guy who you are today. So for you, of course, we know Coach Bowden was a coach always. When did you start to love football, or even start to just play football?
I love sandlot football, like a lot of kids my
Right.
age. In my generation, I'm 67 now. You play. Didn't have the iPads and all the stuff that kept you inside. Your mom kicked you outside, and
That's right.
having brothers. I've got three brothers.
Hmm.
We played sandlot football out in the yard.
Hmm.
And probably about fourth grade is when I started playing organized football.
Okay.
My father,
Mhm.
even at that age, was, I think at this particular time, we were living in Tallahassee. He was an assistant coach at Tallahassee.
Right.
But being in the coaching profession was gone a whole lot. And I was out in the front yard playing sandlot
Mhm.
football. My neighbor, a good friend of mine, his dad came by and forced me to get in the car and go sign up for organized football. I wasn't really excited about the organized part, but I think it's fourth grade down in Tallahassee,
Okay.
Florida, where I started playing.
Oh wow, man, that's special. See, most of us started playing at a young age, and in our generation, I consider myself we're in the same generation. I'm 62, right? We're not
Yeah.
that far apart, and so I remember playing sandlot football just like you did with all my buddies in the street and my cousins, and then I was always fast and I had some speed, so I always got a chance to play with older guys. And so that's where you get a little tough because they'll throw you around and mistreat you and all that kind of stuff, but fell in love with the game, and the rest is history. And I know with your life, not only in Tallahassee, which is a great football community, but your dad was a coach, and you had to follow him around everywhere because he was at Florida State. Now, tell me, let me ask you this about your dad, Coach Bowden. Was he Fred Biletnikov's wide receiver coach at Florida State?
I think at that particular time, Bobby, he was assistant coach. I think he
Mhm.
coached quarterbacks and receivers.
Okay.
Fred Blitnikoff, and
Mhm.
then Steve Tinsey
Steve
was at that particular
Tenzi,
time was a
man,
great quarterback, and back as Seminole fans
wow.
that are a little older would remember that name. But in fact, I believe the year before he went to West Virginia, 1966, as offensive coordinator, I think
Mhm.
they played Oklahoma in the, I want to say, Gator Bowl. But
Okay.
Steve Tinsey was the great wide receiver, or Fred Blitnikoff was the
Was a
wide
great
receiver, and
receiver.
Steve
Yeah.
Tinsey
Right.
was the quarterback.
Wow. That's it. I couldn't imagine with me. I'm a kid, a guy who had a big imagination, right? So I remember back in the old day when I did get a chance to see Florida State play on TV. I never saw Tenzi, of course, or Fred, but I saw Gary Huff play.
Yeah.
I love Gary Huff. Tommy, he's one of my heroes, right? Now, this is my little office right here. If you look over here, you see all these things, right? I have a figurine, of course, of myself. And I'm number 21 at Florida State. Then my son Bryce, I got his figurine when he was at USC, right?
Yeah.
I got one other figurine in my office, and that guy is none other than Gary Huff.
There's probably only two of them. You got one, and he got the other.
He got the other one. And you know what I remember when I was a kid, this Florida State used to wear the state of Florida on the side of the helmet. I loved that helmet when I was a kid, man. I used to always say, one day I want to wear that helmet, right? And so even back then, we didn't get a chance to see those guys much on TV, but that had to be amazing, though, to be around the program when you got a chance to see those guys play.
Well, and back then, of course, Florida State threw the football a lot more than what people did at that particular time. It was
Right.
it was usually run the football, play defense, special
Mhm.
teams, field position
That's
was
right.
was kind of
Mhm.
the philosophy of most your coaches and your teams. But Florida
Mm-hmm.
State threw the football. I think Bill Peterson was that time was the head coach, and
Yes.
because of that style of offense, like
Mm-hmm.
you said, there wasn't a lot of televised games, but
Mm-hmm.
if they'd win a couple games back to back, and Florida State would sometimes get on TV because of
Right.
Gary Huff and Steve Tenzie and
Right.
those guys like Blitnikoff that threw and caught the ball.
Man, that's amazing, man. You know, Fred is another guy, just a great football. I remember my senior year at Florida State. After my football season was over, they put together a flag football game. I don't know if you remember this. And they had all the old great players come back. They had Robert Urich. They had Burt Reynolds. I mean, everybody who was anybody that ever went to Florida State was at that game and participated. And I had just got my wisdom tooth taken out, so I didn't participate. I mean, Jimmy Jordan, everybody goes back. Lee Nelson. I mean, it was just a great environment for the old players to come back. And so I'm there. I'm in the locker room, and I hear this guy just come in the locker room say, "Where's Butler? Where's Butler? Where's Butler?" I'm like, who is this? It was Fred Biletnikoff. He comes there, he starts talking smack. I was so intimidated, right? And so happy that I wasn't playing that night, right? Because that guy can run routes, and he can run circles around anybody. I don't care what kind of speed you have. He's a great
You
player.
and him would have had some great battles, man, kind of like him, Jerry Rice and Deion Sanders battles.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You and Fred Biletnikoff would have, like you said, he was just a magician at running routes.
Man.
The way he worked defensive backs, didn't have great speed, but again, his knowledge of route running, and of course, his hands, and of course, that pine tar he put on his hands back then, the Biletnikoff rule, they banned it all.
I wonder, was he the guy who introduced that to Lester Hayes? He probably was the guy who introduced that to Lester Hayes, right?
Probably was. I know
he was probably the guy who did that. But man, so it had to be awesome, growing up in that environment around your dad, around all those great players. So I heard you say something not long ago. Matter of fact, when I was at your parents' house, we were sitting at the dinner table, and you said something. You said you knew that you always wanted to coach.
Yeah, I wrote a biography in 7th grade. It might have been English class. They had, one of the assignments was to write your own biography, and I wrote it might have been 6th grade. I think when I was in Tallahassee.
Okay.
And I said at that particular time I wanted to be a college football coach.
Wow.
Now, at that time, my father was a football coach, and then had he been a high school coach, my ambition probably would have been a high school coach. But he was a college football coach, so I said, "Hey, I want to be a college football coach," and I never had deviated from that. Terry, went to law school. My younger brother Terry, who was a head coach at Auburn, now up in Louisiana Monroe, he went to law school after that. Jeff, my younger brother Jeff, who coached, went into criminology and had a little bit of desire to maybe some kind of go into criminal justice. But I had a one track mind, and that was college coaching from early on.
Man, that's powerful right there. That's powerful right there. Well, I mean, you did that. I remember after you. Well, first of all, let's take this route. You went to West Virginia while your dad was coaching there, and you played football at University of West Virginia, right? You were a wide receiver,
right?
And so, after your senior year, how did you start your coaching career?
Knowing that I, not like you, I knew I was not going to the NFL. But I knew I wanted to go in college coaching. So my father was gone at the time. He had already gone to Florida State. I finished my playing career for a guy named Frank Signetti, who was the head coach at West Virginia.
Okay.
And then I was one of those guys that just hung around the office. I would make runs up to Pittsburgh, was the closest airport at that particular time. So I got through playing, let's say December. In January, when recruiting was heavy, I would run to the Pittsburgh airport, 60 miles away from Morgantown, West Virginia, where West Virginia University was, pick up prospects, help on recruiting weekend. And then I'd travel with coaches that wanted a partner to go recruit. And I just got into it that way. And then back then, you could put young guys on the road. So I kind of got recruiting at an early age, the ability to go on the road, but went directly into it from college, playing college.
Now, to me, Tommy, when I think about recruiting, it had to be exciting, man. When you go in the homes of these prospects, these guys got all this potential, and you're trying to recruit them to get them into your university. That had to be exciting.
Well, it was. The first home I went into as
Mm-hmm.
a young graduate assistant on the road at West Virginia was I followed a guy, offensive lineman up in Buffalo, New York, but he had some West Virginia roots. But I
Mm-hmm.
followed a guy named Woody Hayes. I don't know if you ever remember that name from Ohio
Really?
State. And we
Wow.
actually got him because he had family ties. But
Wow.
I followed Woody Hayes from my house, and I also followed my father several times recruiting against him.
Now, when you became a head coach, man, I mean, we got to talk about that too, because you guys were competing for the same talent.
When I was at Clemson, we were. Now, my first job at Tulane, it really wasn't.
You're
I didn't
right,
recruit
right,
against
right,
the LSU's and the
right,
Alabamas and
right,
Auburns and Florida
right.
States. But when I
Mm-hmm.
took the Clemson job, I actively recruited against my father because a lot of my contacts were in the state of Florida. When I was at Alabama and Auburn, Kentucky as an assistant, I always recruited the state of Florida. So I had a lot of contacts to high school coaches. So naturally, when I became the head coach, South Carolina not being a heavily populated state, we had to leave the state to fill out our quota of scholarship guys. So I headed south and butted head against the old head coach, my father.
I tell you what, that had to be an amazing thing, because that guy, your dad, I don't know anybody can recruit any better. That dude was amazing. If he went into the home, I'm like, it's a done deal. I mean, it's a done deal. And then when I found out one of his secrets, this was so funny, hilarious, when I found out that he would take, with some recruits, he may take Burt Reynolds with him.
Yeah, that's illegal now, but you could take guys like that.
Like that, right? Like in the old day, right? Oh my God.
Yeah, he's especially good with mothers. And of course, a lot of young guys at 17 or 18 are close to their mothers or fathers. A lot of them have to work. Some of them aren't around. But
That's right.
My father could work them mothers better than anybody.
That's right. Well, your dad was an honest man, and he was so sincere. I mean, you can feel it, right? Because I remember the first time I met him, when me and my parents met him in his office in Tallahassee. I was so convinced everything he said to me, I knew he was telling me the truth, and I just felt him. I told my mom when I came out of the room, I said, Mom, I want to play for that guy. And my mom said, son, you can't make that decision now. I said, Mom, I'm telling you right now, I want to play for this guy. And so my mom had other ideas for me. But anyway, I went on one visit. I went up to Michigan State, East Lansing, and I saw snow for the first time, Tommy. And so you can imagine this little kid from South Florida. I've never seen snow before. I had one high school letterman jacket. That's all I had. I mean, that's all. So I go up there and I see snow. It's up to here, and they're recruiting. They take us straight to the stadium, man. And they took us to the stadium. It was me and about 3 other guys from Delray who went to Boca High School. And we get up in the press box, and man, they're selling it. Man, we hold about 100,000 in the stadium, and they were just going. And I couldn't see it, man. I kept seeing all that snow that was up in the stands, right? And I'm going like, there's no way I could come up here. There's no way, right? And so after that trip, I came back home and I told my mom, I said, Mom, I'm on the basketball team. I can't be doing all this traveling around. I know what I want to do. I want to play for Coach Bowden at Florida State. And that was it. Those were the only 2 trips I took. And that was it. And it was a done deal, right? And
I was a young graduate assistant when you were a freshman. And gosh, I guess, you used to put them weights in your pocket when you got on the scale at about 148.
That's right.
With two 5-pound weights in each pocket. But, that's why people from Michigan retire in Florida. People don't move from Florida and retire in Michigan.
That's right. That's right.
You found out about that snow, and that's what them people found out about this state.
Hey, man, I'm telling you. And so, and the rest is history, man. I went to Florida State, and then you were on the staff, right? And things like that. And I mean, we had a great staff back in those early days. And but you were there, and you when you left Florida State as an assistant coach, where did you go next?
The first I left. My first job was at Duke. Well, from there I went to coach the secondary at East Carolina.
Okay.
And I coached the secondary. I went through spring ball. On the spring ball, after spring ball, I was on road spring recruiting.
Right.
And the running back coach at Auburn called me and said, "Hey, you want to come to Auburn?" Or not the running, the head coach said, "You want to come to Auburn in 1980 and coach running back?" So I went to left Florida State in 80 and went to East Carolina for 4 months coaching secondary. Went through spring ball and then went to Auburn to coach running backs. Stayed there for 6 months, and the head coach got let go. So I was back to Florida State in a holding pattern. Went to other places.
So you got a chance to feel early on in your career what coaching was really like. You might be here next year, you might not be here, right?
Well, that's the truth, and you know that. I was fortunate that I knew that from my father. Now, my father was fortunate to stay stationary for a long. He stayed at West Virginia 10 years and Florida State for close to 40. So
that's amazing.
I had seen some of that. So, but I knew that yes, it's not a very secure profession, and a lot of stress, a lot of pressure. But I saw that all from him.
Right. Man, that's amazing. But I mean, he handled it so well. And so when I look at what you did, I mean, you were an assistant coach, and then in 1997 you became a head coach at Tulane, right? The Green Wave. And so what you did there in 2 years was amazing, man. You were 7-4, I think, your first year, and 5-1 in the conference. And then in 1998, you did the miraculous. You won 11-0, 12-0 basically with the bowl game, right?
Correct.
You went 11-0, and which was amazing. People don't understand how hard it is to go undefeated from wire to wire. That's a hard thing to do. You can be a great.
It really is,
and not do
that. After you win 4 or 5 or 6 in a row, then the bullseye's on you. You used to be hunting everybody, and all of a sudden you become the hunted, and it's a different mentality for your players because they really have to bring you're going to get everybody's A game, and you went through a lot of success in your career. And once you win a lot of games, you get everybody's A game. So even at a place like Tulane, where we didn't have the talent as some of the Power 5 schools do now, but it's all relative. You were playing schools with similar talent, but once you get that bullseye after your 6th win, your 7th win, your 8th win, boy, you can kind of see the finish line of an undefeated season. It becomes a lot more difficult.
Absolutely. And it's hard to not come complacent somewhere in the season. It's just so hard.
When you're dealing with guys that are 18, 19 that read the media, they read the newspapers, they listen and listen to all the students tell them how good they are.
Right.
All of a sudden, you get slapped down pretty quick.
I'll never forget 1979 when we went 11-0 at that Florida State. And we were going pretty good. And I think we were 6-0, if I can remember right. And we go up to Cincinnati. And we play Cincinnati, and it's cold. I don't know how cold it was, but it was a cold day. And Cincinnati could have been the worst football team in the country back then. I'm not sure, but they were close. And I think they were winning like 21-0 at halftime. And I think we were ranked at the time number 6 in the country. And we're playing up there, and we're down by three scores. And so I remember coming to the locker room, and I remember everybody's head down. We couldn't figure out what we were doing wrong, and what's happening here. And your dad, man, just like he always, man, he's just that guy just can motivate you and inspire you, can pull you up from the seat of your pants and make you feel special about yourself when you don't. And he looked at us, he said, "Guys, hold your head up. You know how we play. We throw the ball, bang, bang, bang. We're going to be right back." And next thing you know, everybody's in the locker room screaming, "Yeah!" And we go out and we win the game, down 3 scores, right? And so we ended up taking it all away, but we lost the bowl game that year. But I think that was the first undefeated regular season in Florida State history.
Lost to Oklahoma, wasn't it, in the Orange Bowl?
We lost to Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl.
J.C. Watts was
J.C. Watts and Billy Sims that first year, David Overstreet, Stanley Wilson. I mean, I can go on and on and on. That game was a good game for us. But J.C. Watts, we couldn't stop that guy.
Oh, no. Nobody could.
Nobody could stop J.C. Watts, man. He was really, Billy was a great player, but J.C. Watts was the guy that really got us.
But I tried to talk him into running for president. He was in politics for a long time.
Hey, man, a great guy. Matter of fact, I spoke with him about a couple of years ago. He was in Tallahassee, and James Harris, Skull, remember Skull? He's a lobbyist. And they got together and they called me on the phone and we talked a little bit. He's a great guy, one of the best guys of all time. So, but you and Terry, I
Yeah,
think in 1994, 1998, 1993, Terry got the Auburn job, head coaching
yeah.
job, and he went undefeated his first season. That's unbelievable, man. So
Well, really is.
right now, I look at the Bowdens. Daddy was undefeated, first regular season undefeated in 1979. Terry goes undefeated in 1993, and then his brother goes undefeated in 1998. That has never been done in the history of the game, right?
You know,
Father, sons, undefeated seasons, man. That's an amazing accomplishment all in itself, right there.
well, but when you look at it now, you mentioned the undefeated season and that you mentioned that 11-0,
Mhm.
but he lost his bowl game. So
That's
really,
right.
Terry, when undefeated at Auburn, was on probation, didn't get to play a bowl game. So that was a
Ah,
legitimate 11-0.
ah.
Went 11-0, won my bowl game, went
Okay, that's right.
14-0. The last one to go undefeated and win his bowl game
Bowl
was
game.
my father. So Terry
That's
and I had to
right.
show him the way to win all of them. Y'all lost that bowl game. He didn't win that. So I
That's
won the
right,
bowl
because
game. Terry went
you
undefeated with that one. So my father finally won
finally
the
did it
total, won
all.
his bowl game, won the national championship.
Because that's the year he went wire to wire with
Yeah,
the great
wire to wire,
quarterback.
won them all, including the national championship.
Yeah, I remember that, man. I tell you what's amazing, Tom, when you leave a program like Florida State, the success we had under your dad, and then, guys like me, I follow you, I follow Terry, everybody else who coached in the program, I still feel we're part of the same family, right?
Yeah.
And so I root for you guys. I root for you at Clemson every time until you play FSU, of course. I was loyal to FSU, right? I rooted for you, and you did a great job there. I mean, you just unbelievable. You have never had a losing record as a head coach, not one
Yeah, never
season.
have. I've been very fortunate. You got to stay healthy. You got to have a good staff in order to do that.
Right,
But
right.
Terry had a losing season. My father
Mhm.
had a losing
Yes.
season.
Mhm.
I just wasn't going to have any part of that, Bob. That's
I
for
love it.
sure.
I love it. I love it.
But
So,
you've got
so
to be fortunate to do that. I think I was a head coach 11 and a half years, and then
yes.
but 11 of them never had a losing season.
So, Tommy, let me ask you this. So, in your opinion, right? I mean, you've been around coaching around your life. You've been around your dad, yourself, your brother, a lot of great men, a lot of other coaches that you have developed, like in Dabo Swinney, guys like that. If I ask you this, how do you answer this question? What is the key to success in football for you?
Well, I learned as I got older. I know you're a Christian, and my father's a
Mhm.
Christian. That's my background. Other than some stability in a very tough profession,
Right.
I'm going to stay with more of a secular answer.
Okay.
But the longer I was in coaching, and coaching, the quality of assistant coach is very important. But
Mhm.
the more I learned as I got older, the team with the best players usually wins the game. The first year I played my father, he won the national championship, went wire to wire. I had him 14-3 at halftime. I said, I'm going to get this guy. He beat me 17-14, but the next 3 years, he killed me. But
Wow.
after he beat me really bad, I won the last 4 out of 5.
Right.
But after he beat me real bad the second year, he came up to me after the game. You only had a couple seconds. He's got to go see his team. I got to see mine. He put an arm around my neck. He pulled me up close. He says, "Son, you better go recruiting." So that's when I tried to go out and find Bobby Butlers and guys like
Right,
that.
right. Exactly.
And then we signed a guy named C.J. Spiller out of the state of Florida.
Oh,
Great
he
tailback.
run.
We started to compete and have some successes against the Florida States, the Alabamas, the Auburns in recruiting. So
Right.
to me, the number one thing, now I could say relationships and all that, but I think, boy, if you get good players, it makes your job a lot easier.
Well, and I believe that too, Tommy, because, and I always say this, and, football players in the state of Florida, we got a lot of great football players from that state. And that's not to knock any state like Georgia, Mississippi. We got football players around the country that are great ball players. But I think it's something about where I come from, particularly from Orlando South, right? We get the opportunity to play football year round when most people can't do that, right?
No.
So when January, February gets here, when everybody's inside the gym going to the basketball game, we still can play football, right? And so I always believe, this is my theory, right? If I was a head coach in college today, I would take my best recruiter, Tommy. I'll put him in South Florida and say, don't come home. You stay in South Florida, and I don't need the 5-star. Bring me the 3-star guy. Because those guys down there, they'll go to Illinois, and next thing you know, they're all Americans at Illinois, right? They'll go to other places because they're not getting the attention. Bring me the 3-4-star guy back. And there's so many ball players down there. You know, I look at the job that Alabama does in the state of Florida. You know, you look at all the top receivers. They had a couple guys from Alabama, like the guy who won the Heisman last year, like Julio Jones. Yeah. Most of their star receivers come from South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, right?
Well, then when I was coaching Alabama, the guy you probably familiar with named Derek Thomas.
Yes, sir.
Down there in South Florida,
yes,
along
sir.
with others. So
yes,
they
sir.
went after great players, but everybody comes straight to Florida. And the other thing,
right.
and I know you mentioned the weather, which is conducive to
right.
being outside, throwing and catching, other things.
Absolutely.
But also, you know, Bob, there's not very many states now that have spring ball. There's probably about 6 or 7, most of them in the Southeast, from Texas, Louisiana, Georgia. You know, just so you've also got spring ball down here, which is awful important.
Right, absolutely.
And things like that. So along with the weather, you got spring ball, which is a huge benefit, and the northern schools realize that. The population is pretty heavy down here, so there's just Georgia, like you say, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana, they all have great players. Florida's population is so much greater than those states. There's just more of them.
Right, exactly. And so, you just look at it. And I remember back when I was a kid, back during segregation, right? When in my hometown, we had the all-black high school. You know, we had the all-white high school, and so we would go and watch everybody play, right? And then all of a sudden, in the colleges, the South was not integrated in the major universities. So at Florida State, J.T. Thomas, that group were the first African Americans to play football. I think their basketball team was integrated before the football team. And so Florida wasn't even integrated at the time. And then you look at other schools in the SEC. I can remember when Bear Bryant fixed that game with USC in Alabama so that he could integrate the game. He was a genius at that. It was a genius play because him and John McKay were really close friends.
Yeah.
And they put that game together over in Tuscaloosa, right? Yeah. And next thing you know, USC come with Clarence Davis, with Sam Bam Cunningham.
Oh, yeah.
And Jimmy Jones was a quarterback. and it was amazing that you look at a guy like Clarence Davis, who was from Birmingham, had to go all the way to Los Angeles, California to play football. Yeah. And he came all the way back home that day. It was amazing. But then they integrated. Alabama integrated. They brought in Wilbur Jackson, I think was the first African-American to play there. And then the next thing you know, and then Derek Ramsey's at Kentucky playing quarterback. And Holloway at Tennessee. And next thing you know, we're all together. And now the black athlete can see themselves playing Division I football. And it was amazing because they all went to Grambling, they all went to Southern, they went to FAMU at the time. Yeah. And then we integrate. And then I think around our time in the mid-'70s is when you start to see people like Wes Chandler, Terry LeCount, Willie Green, Willie Wilder, all those guys playing at Florida, you know, O.J. Anderson playing at Miami and places like that. Yeah. And now you see, I think in the state of Florida is such a, when you look at all the major universities, it's a lot of competition in recruiting now, right? Central Florida's got great programs. South Florida, FAU, FIU, you got all these schools down there, and you still have teams coming from the north and everywhere else recruiting a talent in South Florida.
Well, that and you see the Central Floridas and the South Floridas, you know, they're keeping some of the, like I said, those players used to go to Big Ten teams and Big 12 and up in the Northeast, and now they've been able to keep some of those players down south, and their programs have really catapulted.
Absolutely. Well, man, listen, you accomplished a lot in your life. You won, as a head coach, man, you won 90 games and lost 49, man. That's a great record. Not one losing season. I mean, Tommy, you've done some great things. You won the Conference USA Championship 1998, the undefeated year, and won your bowl game on top of that. I think y'all finished 7th in 2 polls, the AP and the coaches poll.
I think one of them we finished 7th because Tennessee happened to beat Florida State for the national championship that year. They were the only other undefeated team. And I think I'd read somewhere where I think we finished 7th and probably the high. I'm going to pick the highest poll. There was probably some other ones. But,
but think about that. That's a heck of an accomplishment, right? And then you went to Clemson after that. And I tell you, it was so odd for me, Tommy, when I saw you and Coach playing against each other, right? And that was like, all right, okay, that was odd for me to see that, but it was amazing because I always wondered. I said, now, I know Coach Miss Ann loved her husband, but that's a baby on the other side of the field.
She likes the credit card. He had the credit card. Plus, she slept with him, so she wore a split sweatshirt one game. After that 17-14 game, we about beat them. She took that sweatshirt all Florida State after that.
Oh, that is funny, man. That is funny. So I mean, and you did great. I mean, some of the awards you won: your Conference USA Coach of the Year '98, 2 times ACC Coach of the Year, 1999 and 2003. And I love this one. In 2006, you were FCA Football Coach of the Year. That's a great accomplishment, right? I love that. I love that. Now, Terry, Tommy, one of the other things I want to tell you personally, between me and you, when my career was over. No, it wasn't when my career was over. It was when I came to know the Lord. And I went to a FCA conference up in Black Mountain, North Carolina. And you were there. I don't know if you remember that or not. And you and I sat on the front of one of the buildings, and we had a long conversation. And I had just committed my life to Christ, and you were there. I'll never forget that. I cherished that time, right? Because I was in such how can I say it? I was wide open, right? I was open for the gospel. And I was there, and I didn't know, even though my father was a preacher, I didn't know 2 or 3 scriptures to put the back to back, right? And so all I remember at that FCA meeting, I would tell the kids that, I make Jesus the Lord of my life, right? And it was amazing because, kids would say at the end of the week, well, I gave my life to the Lord, if Bobby Butler can do it. I was like, wow, okay. Right. So that taught me, right, the influence that I learned when I look back on your dad's life and his career and your life and your career, the influence that you have on people, and I always say this about Coach Bowden, Bobby Butler in particular, and you as well, is that Coach was he was a minister with a whistle around his neck, man.
Well, he was, leadership, another word for it is influence. How do you influence people? Of course, my father was a great leader, and he influenced people in a lot of different ways, but one of them was his Christian faith. And, when I wanted to become a head coach, I said, well, if it involves leadership, let me go study some leaders. And I'd try to study leaders. And as I read the Bible more and more, that the greatest leader of all time was Jesus Christ.
Amen. Amen.
Mirror some of go learn from the greatest leader, the greatest influence of all time.
There you go.
So, fortunately, I had a father that did that, that did that. So I kind of tried to imitate that.
Right.
And the Black Mountain, you mentioned Black Mountain up there at FCA, we used to have those boys camps. My father and I, he'd fly to school plane up and pick me up at Clemson. We'd go there and speak. And of course, he was making that great run at Florida State. And there'd be about 800 campers in there. And as soon as he'd get up and they'd do that tomahawk chop, all 800 of them, and I'd get up there and they'd boo me. But he had every one of them in his hand because he was on a roll. I felt like I was hiding in the back there.
Well, I tell you, he's a great man. He's a one-of-a-kind guy. Matter of fact, today, I played in a golf tournament today with the Shriners here in Atlanta, north of Atlanta. And one of the guys who I played with, he just came up to me and he asked me, he said, didn't you play college football for Coach Bowden? And I said, yes, I did, right? And so it's always a conversation about his faith. People hardly talk about, when they mention him, they hardly talk about man, he had a couple Heisman Trophy winners. He won, 2 national titles. They never talk about that. They talk about the man he was.
Yeah, he was. I think his funeral services or the services that they had was a
Mm-hmm.
good indication of the influence, or what type of influence he had on uh, people. And just before I get away from this thing, you did such a great job in that service of transitioning the
Mm-hmm.
whole service. It was a 2 hour and 15 minute
Yeah, it was
service.
wild, right?
It was televised, and MC is the wrong word to use. You did such
Mm-hmm.
a great job of taking that service with a lot of people there and a lot of attention on him, and a lot of ex players, really high profile guys. But
Yes.
what a great job you did of transitioning from speaker to speaker and keeping that thing going in a very rewarding way for my father, my mother, and
Yes.
I know the family is really appreciative of you and how you kind of just led that whole service. But yeah, I think the service, you got a good picture of
Mm-hmm.
the influence that he had on players
Yes.
other than football.
Yes. And I'm amazed that, everybody, and this is amazing. My neighbor, lived right there in this cul-de-sac next to me, talked about the time when he took his son there to, he was a baseball player from Marist. I went to Marist High School here in Atlanta, and he went there, scholarship baseball player. And he said they pulled up in the parking lot, and it was recruiting week. And he said when he got out, Coach Bowden was getting out of the car. He just came and just, hi, how y'all doing? Introduce himself, all that kind of stuff. You know how you do. And he thought they were coming there for football. He said, well, no, my son's a baseball player. We're here for that. And he said, well, we know somebody you might know. And they said, well, Bobby lives next door and all that kind of stuff. And, he was just a gentleman, man. He was just a kind-hearted man. And you can feel that in him, right? That he was just genuine. Nothing fake about him. Just a genuine man, fun-loving man. And Tommy, here's the one thing about him. I had no idea when I first met him that he was so much like my dad.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever met my dad, but my dad and your dad, they're like this. They're two peas in a pod. And even up until a couple of years ago, my dad's, he's 83, and he's got Parkinson's right now, and not as healthy as he's been in the past. But if Coach Bowden was within 2 hours of Delray Beach, my father would get my brother-in-law to put him in a car and drive him to hear Coach Bowden speak. Right? That's how much parents love him. I mean, even after all those years ago, right, he would be there, to hear Coach Bowden.
Because that generation, Bobby, your father and my father, I think they were cut from a different cloth.
Yes.
On principles and morals and standards and all, things like that. So, you're very fortunate to have that kind of influence. And I had the same thing, but
right.
They were a different generation. I would imagine there's a lot of similarities between your father and mine.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, I couldn't pick it up at the time, but when I look back, I know what it is now. The connection that I had so early with him was he was just like my pops, man. Just like my pop. So listen, man, so what are you doing now? I mean, you're retired, you left Clemson a few years ago, and what are you doing now?
Well, after I got through at Clemson, I did TV for about 8 or 9 years, which was pretty easy. I did a show in Atlanta, and I did a show in Charlotte. One's for the ACC and one's for pretty much Power 5 conferences. Then after about 8 or 9 years, my father's health started declining a little bit. Right. My father-in-law, so don't do TV anymore. And I do a lot of faith-based speaking, of Christian speaking.
Right.
Just got back from St. Louis, just got back from Omaha, and then I pretty much travel in the United States. I don't do it internationally, but mostly Christian speaking.
Right.
And probably do about once every week to 10 days, and really enjoy that. But again, I got that from my father. I tagged along with him a lot of times in my career. And as a young adult and as a young coach, listen to him speak at Christian organizations. And we talked about influence a little bit earlier. You have such a great platform as an ex-head coach, and I surely have that platform now.
Well, that's good because, at the end of the day, we do what we do. And, I don't know about you. I never played football for fame. I play because I love the game. All that stuff, all that other stuff is always added by outside influences. But I love to play football, and and I love people. I found out I love people. I was telling the young man yesterday, when I was in high school, at the end of the fourth period, we had lunch, every day. And when that bell would go off, the students would run to the cafeteria, man. They'll sprint, right? But the football players, we didn't run, because when we got there, we were going to the front of the line, right? And so what I would do, though, Tommy, every day I would look at a little kid or a kid who just, I would take them with me to the front of the line, and they would have lunch with me. I would make them eat lunch with me at the table. I'll give them popularity for a day, right? I was always a kid like that, always looking to reach out.
They must have ate your food. You didn't eat very much weighing coming in.
I did, right? I did, right?
You gave your food.
Hey, Coach Henshaw told me when I went in that meeting to meet your dad, he said, "Don't take that jacket off now. Whatever you do, Bobby, don't take that jacket off." I didn't know what he was talking about, man. Why I can't take my jacket off, right? But we had a great time, man. We had a great time. But listen, I've learned this, and I didn't know this in the beginning. The Bible says this: train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And so that scripture, and when I think about the word training, right? Training is not an easy thing, right? Training, is going to cost you something. You got to work at it. And my parents took us to church. My father's a pastor. He took me to church. Every time the church door was open, the Butler family was at the church, right? And so when I became a teenager, Tommy, I didn't want to do that so much no more, right? I wanted to go have fun with my friends. I wanted to hang out with my buddies, right? But I wasn't allowed to do things like my friends did. And I couldn't understand that as a teenager. And so when I went to Florida State, I said to myself, well, I don't have to go to church no more. I'm on my own, right? And the first Sunday that we didn't have practice, Coach Bowden got us all together. He said, well, all right, boys, tomorrow we don't have practice. We're not gonna practice tomorrow, but what we're gonna do, I want you to put on your Sunday best, and the bus will pick you up, and we're going to church tomorrow. And I thought, are you kidding me? No, not really. And so I was so mad, right? And so we went to First Baptist of Tallahassee, and right downtown, and we went down there, and I remember the whole service. I looked over there, I kept watching him, and he was writing stuff down. I said, look at that guy. He's writing plays. He's not paying attention to the pastor. He's drawing up plays in the church, right? Didn't know he was writing notes of what the pastor was preaching, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so it was good because, see, not only that, even the call on my life, what God had ordained for my life, personal life, I had to go to Florida State. It was ordained for me to go there to sit another 4 years after I left my home under the leadership of a guy like Coach Bobby Butler, right? And then I go to Atlanta. I was not saved, but we kept losing every week, and I was losing my mind, Tommy. I'll be honest with you. I was losing my mind. This is not good. And so it was then people like Steve Borkowski, guys who was witnessing to me.
Yeah.
Wallace Francis, Billy White Shoes Johnson, all my buddies, right? They kept telling me, man, Jesus loves you, man. And so next thing you know, I repented and gave my life to the Lord and been living for him ever since, man. And I'm gonna tell you, my life on this side is so much better than that life on the other side.
Well, that's, once you look at Christianity, study Christianity, you find out that that's the case. Well, about 100% of the time, your life is so much better. You feel so much more at peace with what you're doing. Absolutely. If you're in God's will. And, it's amazing. You talk about influence and how my father influenced you. But as a young coach, or when I became a head coach, I did the same thing at Tulane. I took my team to a church. When I got to Clemson, took my team to church. And when I was raised, I raised my children kind of like you. You didn't get votes on whether you wanted to.
That's right. We're going
to church.
That's right.
But Proverbs 22:6, which is what you just quoted, that's our job and responsibility as godly fathers and godly husbands.
Amen. I love it, man. So listen, man, I really appreciate you being on with me tonight. Man, we got to do this more another time. We need to get you, Terry, and Jeff on. I need to get all three of y'all on at the same time, man.
Hey, if all three of us get on there, all four of us will be listening to Terry. He's a lawyer. He can talk, man.
He'll dominate the conversation.
But the Warhawks, two big wins. They've now won 4 games.
Oh wow, awesome, man. Awesome, that's good. He's doing a great job, man. He's such a great man. I really enjoy him, and I really enjoy playing with Jeff. You know, back in the old day, Jeff don't think much of his playing at Florida State, but I tell you what, he played so hard, right?
Tougher than nails.
Yeah, I mean that guy, and he would embarrass you now. You know he was an offensive guard in high school, and then he was a wide receiver at Florida State, right? And so when you're playing corner at Florida State, you know, you better not let that guard catch no passes on your
Oh, man.
But man, I mean, a guy who he was a guy who he just took everything the extra mile. I mean, he just had his heart in it, and he worked so hard at it. And so it's no wonder he was a great coach as well. You know, he's a great coach as well. So look, man, thank you for your time, buddy. We appreciate you. And hey, let's not be strangers, man. Invite me down to Destin. Take me fishing.
Come to Destin. We come down here. We'll get you taken care of.
I gotta go fishing now. You gotta take me fishing.
We'll do that. I got some good place. We'll take you give some bluegill.
All right. No. I'm not a bluegill man. I'm a red snapper. I'm a red snapper. I'm a grouper and a red snapper man. I'm a red snapper man. So
there'll be guys lined up to take you if you come down.
Okay, I'd love to do it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is our show tonight. We thank Tommy for his time, the great Tommy Bowden, head coach of Clemson University, former head coach at Clemson, former head coach at Tulane, and assistant coach at Florida State, Auburn, and East Carolina, and a few places. Hey, man, we thank you for your witness more than anything, Tommy. And we'll keep you in our prayers, and that the Lord will keep you strengthened and keep you doing the things that you're doing for him and giving him glory.
Enjoyed it. Let's do it again soon.
Let's do it, man. God bless you.
All right, Bob.
All right, man.